All of the elements have their movements. Movement of earth is spreading. If you see a pile of sand at a construction site, sooner or later that sand is going to spread out. And if no one uses that sand, it's just going to spread itself over the land. That's the earthly movement, spreading out. And then there is the watery movement, which pours down. If we reach down for something we've dropped, that's the movement of water working through us, like a waterfall, raindrops. The opposite movement, reaching up, leaping out of bed, that's fire. Reaching up for the sky, shooting up. And then the movement that zigzags, that isn't predictable, is air. So each of the elements have their movements, and all of them are dancing in us, in all of our gestures, in our gait, in all that we do. Just think, earth, water, fire, and air are dancing in you. Last week we spoke of prakriti, that is to say, substance, which is the counterpart to consciousness, both expressions of one primordial essence. And prakriti is known to have three primary modalities, and these are three kinds of movement. The first is sattva, and that is very gentle, ethereal, subtle, very fine. And then comes the movement known as rajas, which is more assertive and is rhythmic and is productive, and it builds and it creates. This is the rhythm of the world when it's flourishing and moving. And then there is that rhythm which Zuleika showed us so interestingly in a kind of hectic rushing, getting ahead of yourself and stumbling over your own feet. That is tamas. That is the rhythm of destruction, and all things ultimately do need to disintegrate. And tamas helps in this rhythm of unraveling and falling apart. We see all of these things all around us all of the time in our own rhythm. When there's something just gently gestating in sattva, a new dawn breaking within. Or when there's a rhythmic, constructive current of accomplishment, fulfilling a purpose. Or when we give ourselves over to abandonment, whether consciously or unconsciously, and at last collapse. These are all parts of the movement of prakriti. There is one great dance swirling around us, and the origin of that dance is in the primordial day, when the souls were all summoned forth before the one to whom we belong, before our source, our origin, our essence, our truth. And the question was asked, Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not the one to whom you belong? The sound of that voice, the sound of the eternal beloved, ringing in the soul's ears before any other voice, and posing the question, do you or do you not belong to me? Are we not forever and truly linked in the love that is the source of your coming into being? Is this link between us not real and the essence of everything? And the soul, hearing this, was moved to sama. That was the first sama. That was the first listening. Not only listening, but moved to dance. The soul whirled to the sound of the voice of the original, the total, the real being. And the soul has been dancing since that day. Now, it's told that the soul hesitated to enter the body because the body wasn't dancing. The soul was dancing, but the body wasn't dancing, and it didn't want to enter, therefore. But then the angels revealed the music that was in the body. The body was dancing. The soul had to learn that the body had its own dance. And when the soul saw that, it was drawn in. It wanted to take part. It had its dance, and now it wanted to take part too in the dance of the body, and entered it. But then the body forgot that the soul had its dance. It totally forgot. But when the body does remember the soul's dance, then the body moves its limbs and sways and finds itself in ecstasy. Ecstasy is the dance of the soul and the dance of the body, all in one, all carried by the voice of the one to whom we belong. Now you might say, you're speaking all about movement and gesture. Why is it then that so often we practice stillness? Why is it so often that we close our eyes and sit still? Isn't this contrary to the great dance that fills the universe? Are we withdrawing from that cosmic movement? Is this a gesture against life? It may seem so, but the poet Shamshad, in a verse that Hazrat collected in his Minkari Musikar, Shamshad sees it differently. He says in Urdu, "Samjha hu ikamat jisse wo aini safar hai. Zahir mein to beta hu, hakikat mein ravan hu." Samjha hu ikamat, I took for standing still. I mistook for standing still. Jisse wo aini safar hai, that which is in fact the essence of travel. Zahir mein, externally, beta hu, I'm sitting, but hakikat mein, in truth, ravan hu. Ravan is an interesting word. That happens to be the name of my son, Ravan Baksh. But Ravan means spirit, but it also means moving. What do we call spirit? That which moves, that which flows. The Bible tells us the Spirit moveth as it listeth. The Ruh is Ravan, is flowing, moving. So I took, even though I'm sitting still, and I took this for stillness, in fact, it's a journey. I'm journeying when I'm still, and I'm flowing. So let's try this. You can sit still, come to rest, just relax. Let your shoulders open up, let your spine be tall as a pine tree. And when you're still, perhaps the first thing that you notice is that you're not completely still, because inevitably you're breathing. And so you watch yourself breathing. When you were moving around, perhaps you were not aware of this constant rhythm, but now you are. So you watch the belly rise and the chest rise, the belly fall and the chest fall. Breath comes in, goes out. You're filled and emptied. You might be reminded of standing or walking at the seashore. As waves come in and go out. Your body is like a tide pool, filled and drained out again, filled and drained out again, each time a wave comes in. Instead of thinking of yourself as a monolith that's bounded and static. Now that we are relaxed and aware, we could look more closely and observe that in addition to this rhythm, there's another rhythm, which is the rhythm of the heart. Feel your heart beating. Like a metronome. Counting out instants of time. If it's difficult to notice your heartbeat at first, you could place your hand on your chest gently. See if you feel it now. And if you pause between your inhalation and exhalation, it might be still more noticeable. And once you've found it, it's easier to keep hearing it, even if you take your hand away. Of course, you don't hear it with your ears, hear it with an inner hearing. When the heartbeat has become familiar, you could take a further step and notice the pulse in your extremities, in your hands and feet, in your neck and temples. It's the echo of the heartbeat. So now you feel the whole circulatory system churning. The whole interior of the body is flowing, moving, whereas it seemed previously solid. You discover it as liquid. Now if you pay attention to the central axis of the body, which the spine represents, you may notice a still subtler flux of energy. A very subtle glimmering, shimmering of electricity. Moving up and down from the tailbone to the crown and back down. And also branching out through the limbs. Extending through the fingers and toes. And if your awareness becomes very refined, it does take time to cultivate this degree of subtle awareness. But in time, the skin isn't the boundary. When our eyes are open, it seems so obvious that our personhood ends at the contour of the visible body. But when the eyes are closed and you sense your actual sense of presence, do you really feel it suddenly stopping somewhere? Or instead, do you sense a kind of diffusion or radiance that fades into the surrounding space rather than ending suddenly? Especially noticeably on the exhalation. Whereas on the inhalation you might feel yourself indrawing light and vibration from all around. So one is tuning into a subtle body that is pulsing, which is immersed in the surrounding atmosphere like a vortex. Drawing in and sending out light. Now let's shift our attention to our thoughts. Thoughts come and go. Sometimes thoughts take the form of words. One isn't speaking audibly, but still sentences are forming in the mind. If we let those grammatical constructs go, we might find ourselves thinking in images, watching images float by, appear and disappear, or shapeshift like images seen in clouds. But if you peer deeper into the depths of the mind, the images seem to dissolve into light, mental light, light of consciousness. And then you're simply aware of luminosity, perhaps an array of hues, beams, rays, waves, sparkling, scintillating, All of these gleams are crystallizations of vibration. Interior sound. The rhythms and tones that well up from the deepest reservoirs of the cosmos, the innermost planes. There's a deep drone that rolls through everything. That deep rumbling that erupts out of the ancient silence. The Logos. Streaked through with the chants of the angels. Whose instruments are their very bodies. Sheikh al-Akbar tells us the movement that is the coming into being of the cosmos is a movement of love. Love is the first vibration and the last vibration. It's the emergence of motion out of the infinite stillness. Call it Ishq, call it Leela, call it Maya. It's a movement of love, becoming a sweeping breath. That carries the unmanifest into manifestation, that whirls everything in its train, whirling out of the ancient emptiness. That same spiraling raqs, that dervish dance of the cosmos that is at this very moment working out the destiny of its ecstasy in the very atoms of your flesh and mine. And so we say with Murshid as we inhale, let me see thy divine movement. And as we exhale, in all moving things of the universe. Inhaling, let me see thy divine movement. Exhaling, in all moving things of the universe. And we can let the words go, but keep the meaning alive. Keep the meaning alive as we open our eyes. to behold the movement of all things.